Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Thank you, Bill. Hi, everybody. My name is Ernie Raskowskis, and I am an alcoholic. And I'd like to start by thanking JR and John and Rosemary, all of the committee, for inviting me. I'm honored to be on a panel with such fine speakers. And I've taken something from everyone's talk that I've heard so far this weekend, and it's just been wonderful. And right now, at twilight time in the cool of the evening, I'm going to have my moment. Let me start by telling a little story. It's an old story. It's one I've told. There's somebody up front here who'll trade with you then. You want me to start all over? Let me start by telling a little story. It seems I like the story. I've told it many times. I like the way I tell it. And if I tell it right, I'll probably offend a lot of people. There's a man that died and went to heaven. And he had lived a good life. He got up there, and St. Peter met him at the gates, and he said, "What denomination do you belong to?" And the man said, "I don't belong to any denomination. I just tried to live a good life and do the right thing, and I haven't belonged to any denomination." And St. Peter said, "I'm sorry," but he said, "We keep people up here by denomination. So what I'm going to do is take you around to some rooms and let you pick out a denomination for yourself." So he took him to the first room, and there are a lot of people in there kneeling, clutching their rosaries, perspiring, praying, long drawn faces. And he said, "Who are these people?" St. Peter says, "These are the Catholics." He says, "You know, a lot of them don't even know they're up here yet." And the guy said, "Let me see some of the other choices." So St. Peter took him to the next room. And in the next room are all these people that are prim and proper. They're sitting in these pews. The women are in very severe, tailored clothes. The men are there. They all have their hymnals, and they're all looking straight ahead, and long faces, little thin blue lips. And he said, "Who are these people?" St. Peter said, "These are the Protestants." And the guy said, "This is for an eternity. Are there any other choices?" St. Peter says, "There's one more room." And he took him to the next room, and he threw the door open, and these tremendous billows of smoke came out. There was a heavy smell of coffee. People were laughing and joking and hugging one another. And the man got very encouraged. And he said, "Who are these people?" And St. Peter says, "We don't know. They won't tell us. They say we're here just for a day at a time. You're those people. You're those people." I'd rather be right here, right now, with all of you than any place else on the face of the earth. What do you think of that? And the reason for that is one of the tremendous gifts. We have many gifts beyond sobriety. One of the tremendous gifts I've been given in AA is the ability to savor the moment. This is a special moment in my life. There's never going to be another June 1, 2002 for me. There's never going to be another 2002 flagship conference. And never in the history of the world again will the exact group of people that are here probably ever assemble again. So each of you is very important to me. Each of you is like a diamond in the mosaic of my life. And you know, when I was drinking, I was never comfortable where I was. I always wanted to be someplace else. But one of the tremendous lessons I learned here in the fellowship of AA is the moment is all we can live. And that's really what we focus on when we say a day at a time. We have so many other gifts. I heard the other speakers here this weekend take the mask off that so many of us have hidden behind so much of our lives and not be afraid for us to see them for who they were, because they're accepted here. They know that. We have this wonderful mutual vulnerability. I can be honest and open, and it's okay, no matter what's happened in my past, what's happened in my life. And incidentally, before I go further, there's one thing I'd like to share with you. One special thing I'm going to take away from this weekend. I chatted for a few minutes with a man here that was sitting in the front row. And I learned from him that this program of Alcoholics Anonymous can still be interesting and exciting after you're sober 54 years. And it's a guy, Walt. Why don't you guys on either side of him make him get up and wave to everybody? Get up, Walt. Let him see who you are. I've been sober a long time myself. You can look and tell that I've been someplace a long time. My sobriety date is the 16th of February, 1961. A little over 41 years. And for this, I am indeed very, very grateful. I have two big heroes in my life. Let me tell you about my group first. I belong to the Potomac, Maryland group. And to review our geography a little bit, Potomac, Maryland is about 10, 12 miles out of Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. is a federal enclave, 10 miles square. And to the north and east is the state of Maryland. And to the south and west, across the Potomac River, is the state of Virginia. And that's our metropolitan area, and that's where our AA activities take place. We run back and forth across the borders there to the various meetings in the district and Maryland and in Virginia. As I was saying, I have two big heroes in my life. One is Mother Teresa, and the other one is Bill Wilson. And I've had the privilege, the ineffable honor of meeting and being touched physically by both of them. My wife used to cook for an AIDS home in Northeast Washington. And when Mother Teresa came to town, we used to be invited over there to attend a Mass with her. And my group, many years ago, gave me a throwaway job. They made me General Services Representative. They didn't trust me to make the coffee. But I hung on to that job, and I got to be our delegate to New York. And back when I was the delegate to New York, panel 17, 1967, 1968, Bill Wilson used to like to come to the meetings. He's, had a little trouble letting go. And he used to hang around in the back of the room. And I got to fellowship with him and meet him and talk to him a little. I even have a picture of me and Bill. And I'll tell you something, he got a profound lesson in humility the first year I was there, in 1967. He wrote a book, excerpts from his various talks and grapevine articles, called The AA Way of Life. And it had a gray cover on it. He autographed it and gave me a copy of it. And then a little later on, after the conference, some AA said to him, they said, "Gee, this book is wonderful, Bill, but who are you to write about the AA way of life? All you can write about is as Bill sees it." So they renamed the book and put a different color cover on it and reissued it the following year. Interesting, isn't it? Our co-founder, wonderful, wonderful guy. I think at rare times in history, there's a spark of celestial fire that comes down and ignites the life of a person. And I think that happened to both of these people that I've mentioned, Mother Teresa and Bill Wilson. And it imparts to them a message, a power, that's so powerful that it can transcend generations. It can cross oceans. It can cross racial barriers, economic barriers. It can go through language barriers. And I'm speaking from experience because I've been in AA long enough to see that it has crossed the generation gap. I've had the privilege of being in the meetings all over the world, and I've seen this message shared all over the world. I've seen it go through the racial barriers, language barriers. And from 1935 till today, it's gone all around the world, and it came out here this weekend in the talks I heard, just as simple and as bright and shiny as a new penny. The love of one drunk for another. Love and service. Truth is one. The message is the same, whoever speaks it, whatever they talk about. And I think part of our obligation is to carry this message, the idea of it, out into the rest of our life. That openness I talked about, that honesty. Bill Wilson once said that there comes a time in our sobriety when we have to return to the world that perhaps rejected us and that we ourselves had rejected, and become citizens of the world. And I think that's the theme of the last part of the 12th step, to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Mahatma Gandhi, when the Christian missionaries came to India, he said, "Let your life be the message." It's just like a rose. A rose doesn't have to say anything. Its fragrance conveys its message. So that's the ideal that I would like to have for the rest of my life, however long I may have to live. Now, I didn't have all of these beautiful thoughts the day I came to my first AA meeting. I came here a reluctant dragon. But very fortunately, my sponsor explained to me the day I came to my first meeting what an alcoholic is. I identified myself here as an alcoholic. I said, "My name is Ernie Raskowskis, and I am an alcoholic." And he told me an alcoholic is simply a person that cannot drink safely. So if there's anybody new or relatively new here, when I say I'm an alcoholic, I make one simple admission, that I cannot take a drink safely. I don't admit that I'm necessarily neurotic, psychotic, weak-willed, wishy-washy, shiftless, lazy, no account, unemployed, unemployable, of little learning, or of poor background, all of the things that I associated with alcoholism and alcoholics before I met you good people. I only admit that I can't take a drink safely. I think this is important because if there's a word in the English language that has the grating sound, the unpleasant sound to the ear of the person who is still practicing his or her art, it's that word alcoholic. There were a lot of I nevers in my background. I was never a daily drinker. I was never a morning drinker. I was never a spree drinker. I've never been in a treatment center. I've never had a prescription for my drinking. Never consulted a doctor for my drinking. I've never been fired from a job because of drinking. I've never been divorced because of drinking or for any other reason, which incidentally, with the young people coming into AA, in time we're going to be hearing a lot of people that have 40, or I won't be here to hear it, but people will be hearing about people that have 40 and 50 years of sobriety like Walt does. Something you don't hear very often in AA, though, is I've been married to the same woman for 52 years. What do you think of that? So I told you about all those I nevers. Some of you are thinking, well, what's this guy going to talk about tonight? I didn't say I was never arrested because of drinking, did I? Because like a few of you out there have been some unjust arrests in my background. You know, it used to be easy to get arrested in Washington, D.C. You could, when I was in college and law school, just waiting for a streetcar downtown, and the car is late, and I've had a few beers, and I'm sitting on a curb, and I doze off, and a policeman comes along with a nightstick and says, okay, let's go. Takes you down the precinct. So I accumulated, I don't know exactly how many, 8, 10, 12 arrests while I was in college and law school. I wish I had kept better records. I didn't know that there would come a day that it would be a matter of prestige here in AA. And for all I know, the AA might come out with a pension plan. I could lose some of my benefits. But anyhow, after I was a lawyer, I was only arrested once ever for public intoxication. And that's where I got around Washington the name of Ernie the Attorney. And I'll tell you how that came about. Incidentally, I was not one of these guys that drank at home. I was not the type of guy that was there in his underwear in front of the boob tube, you know, with a six-pack. I did all my drinking out. I bet the whole time, the 10 years we were married before I came to AA, I never drank a fifth of liquor at home or a case of beer. I'd rather drink out. I like the bright lights and the music. And besides, there was too much commotion at home. When I came into AA, there were 6 kids at home. Like some of the other speakers, we're Catholic. We wound up with 8. And we practiced the rhythm system. The problem is we never got to beat. And this woman I was married to was always pregnant, you know. And I thought I owed it to my profession. I preferred to drink in the better places, uphold the standards of the profession. But occasionally when I felt down, when I felt low, I preferred to drink in a low-class bar alone. And when I drank in the better places, I liked to drink with people. I always had an entourage with me, people that could share me and enjoy me. But when I felt down, I preferred to do solitary drinking in a low-class bar. And there was a good reason for this. if you're feeling depressed and you can go into a low-class bar and look at the other customers there, these old men that are sitting there, it would give me an immediate lift, a feeling of I'm better than these people. And there was a place like that in downtown Washington, Jimmy's, a basement bar room. And there was always a row of tired old men sitting there in these army coats they had been given down at the mission. And there's no jukebox there. It's not that kind of a place. Everybody's there having his own private fun. And nobody's arguing politics or baseball or anything. That's 20 years ago, you know. Everybody's just sitting there drinking their muscatel wine. And I came in one night, I took the first stool, sat down, got a screwdriver, orange juice, and vodka. And I started a little meditation. I was sitting there sipping on my drink. And I felt like wallowing in some self-pity because I already felt low. And it went something like this. I says, look how you've worked and struggled, kid, to get through college and law school. You got out of law school, you had a wife and 3 kids and a lot of bills. Other guys you went to school with, the family gave them a big car or helped set them up in a law office or something like that. And I was really getting to enjoy this, you know. That's right, Ernie, you know, you did have it rough. And I'm sitting there and I'm drinking, and I look in the mirror on the back bar. I notice I'm getting a little fat. I already weighed 308 pounds. To tell you how cunning, baffling, and powerful alcohol is, in those days I thought I was too fat to be an alcoholic. My idea of an alcoholic was one of these skinny little guys you see blowing around in the wind that has a lot of slack in the seat of his pants. Sort of looks like his rear end was shot off in World War II, you know. So I was sitting there having my meditation, and every time the door opened, the old men and I turned. I don't know who we were expecting. Looked like we were watching a tennis match or something. But we were looking the wrong way that night. Because that night the action came from a far corner of the bar room. There was a drunken woman back there. Ooh. Now, I don't know if this lady got the wrong drink, the wrong change, or what it was, but she got into an argument with the owner bartender, who was a pretty good belter himself, and they're hollering back and forth and back and forth. The old men are getting annoyed. And finally, this woman hurled some obscenities across that room that visibly shook up these old men. We thought this was a respectable low-class bar, you know. Jimmy got on a phone, called the police up. They don't respond like that now. They were there in 2 minutes. And I sat there, I'm sipping my drink. I'm watching this drama unfold. Remember, this is a guy with 8, 10, 12 arrests in the background. So I'm so close to this danger and watching it, but not personally involved yet. And the cops go back and they grab this woman, and she's like Annie the cop fighter. She's swinging the purse around. They can't get a handle on her. Jimmy had these old wire-back chairs and tables like they put in the ice cream joints now to make them look old-timey, only that was his original equipment. And they're trying to drag this woman out in half the furniture. And as they dragged her by my bar stool, I don't know what happened. In a flash of inspiration, I reached into my pocket and took out one of my lawyer cards. And I said, baby, if they give you a hard time, call Ernie the attorney. I never got to pull my arm back. I got jerked right out to the paddy wagon with her. And she and I shared our experience, strength, and hope with each other on the way to the number 2 precinct. My law partner had to come down and bail me out the next morning because I didn't have the money to pay my way out. But in those days, my philosophy was Big Ernie works hard, and he plays hard. That's still my philosophy. That's not a bad way to go. I was a trial lawyer, and after an arduous day in court, a long day in the office, listening to clients or interviewing witnesses, I've never been a very good listener. 5 o'clock would roll around and would meet at some convenient place near our offices, my classmates and colleagues, other lawyers I hung out with, and just about a block from my office was a very fashionable hotel, the Jefferson Hotel, one of my favorite watering holes. And this was the kind of place, very refined, very dignified, never any conferences or conventions or anything there, no people walking around with tags or anything, you know, hushed tones. But they had a terrific organ player there. He could take the mood, tell the mood I was in when I walked in. If I was in the mood for show tunes, he'd start playing the show tunes. If I seemed to have a Spanish mystique about me that night, he'd play my theme song, a tango. I was a big tango man. I get ideas. Adios, muchachos. And I was sort of the leader of the group. You know, everybody's getting settled in. I've already got my first drink down. And they're just getting situated. I'm ordering the next round. And after I ordered the second round, I'd go out and I'd call my wife up. Kathy's home, they're pregnant. And I'd say, Kathy, you and the kids go ahead and eat. Don't hold dinner for me. I'm tied up with some clients here. As soon as I can shake loose, I'll be right along. The music's playing in the background. Should say, Ernie, please don't stay out and get drunk tonight. Imagine talking that way to a professional man. I says, Kathy, I'm down here. I'm trying to scratch a living out for you people. You're giving me this static. Tonight I am going to stay out just to let you know who's boss in our house. See, this is way before women's lib. You could talk like that then, 40-some years ago. I always wanted to be a good husband. I always wanted to be a good father. I always wanted to do a good job for my clients. And I always had good intentions. And every time I came into a lounge like that, I knew as I came in that door, I'm going to have 2 drinks and I'll be out of here at 6:15. And I never really drank comfortably. I always drank with that mantle of responsibility, that cloak of guilt. And when my wife would confront me like that, it was like giving me a pass. Now I could go back and do that get even revenge drinking, misunderstood husband drinking. And the evening would wear on. It'd be around 8 o'clock, and the other guys would want to leave, and I'd say, we're just getting into the shank of the evening. And they'd say they're worried about driving. So the party would break up, and I'd tidy up my 308-pound body, freshen up a little bit, and go out and cut the biggest, widest swath as I then fashioned it through Cafe Society in downtown Washington. And invariably, around 1:45 in the morning, that's when they closed the bars at 2, they'd have last call. And I'd be someplace where I just met these fascinating, newfound friends. And here they want to break the party up and go home. And sometimes I would persuade them to go over to Chinatown to an after-hours illegal place, or maybe even drive over to Baltimore. And I'd come rolling in 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Maybe that's why I didn't need the morning drink. I was still humming those show tunes after a couple hours of sleep. Now, my poor wife tried every approach in the books. I'd come down in the morning, and she would confront me. and would get in a terrible argument and should talk about my drinking and would be a shouting match, and I'd slam the door and leave the house. In those days, I don't know whether my wife had ever heard of AA. I know she had never heard of Al-Anon. I'm pleased to report that she became a member of Al-Anon. And although her health isn't the best now, she still goes to meetings when she can. And that fellowship has enriched the life of our family. I know I have all the Al-Anons on my side now. But it's true. And that was a marvelous Al-Anon talk I heard from Kathy this morning. And so that's one approach she used. Now, another approach my wife used, and she hates for me to imitate her like this. She doesn't sound like this, but this is the way I heard her. I'd come down in the morning and she'd try this second approach, the grinding approach. Ernie, the children's report cards had to be reviewed last night and signed, and you weren't here. I had to review them. I had to sign them. Ernie. Sister called about, the kids were going to parochial school. Sister called about Joey's hair. Now, this is over 40 years ago. Kids are wearing flat tops. Joey looked like a little Jesus. His hair was down to his shoulders. I promised Sister that Joey would get a haircut. You weren't here to take him. Ernie. Like grinding on my aorta, and I'd have to just sit there and what could I say? Everything she said was true. But the approach she used that seemed to work best is sort of neutral. I'd come down in the morning, maybe I'd been on a bad one. It's like I got in at 4:30, 4:45, and I'm trying to close one eye and look at the paper and drink a little coffee, and I'm waiting for the bombs to fall. Some of us are impatient, and my wife now, she's not putting the freeze on me. She'll speak when spoken to. Everything, however, is very businesslike, like these diplomatic conferences you hear about with Arafat now. They had a businesslike meeting. Well, that's how our conversations were, you know. So I'm sitting there, I'm waiting for the bombs to fall, nothing happens, and I said, okay, Kathy, cut the act. I know what's bothering you. It's my drinking, right? She says, that's exactly right. I said, you know what the real problem is? The real problem is you're not normal like other women. Now, that requires a little explanation. My wife and I met when we were both students at the Catholic University of America in Washington. On her 21st birthday, a couple of her girlfriends took her down to this nice seafood restaurant on the Potomac River, Hogate's, and she had her first drink of beverage alcohol. She had this drink and she got a little silly, a little tipsy, a little nauseous, a little uncomfortable, and she decided she didn't like this stuff. And my wife hasn't had a drink from that day till this day. My wife is now 52 years sober. What do you think of that? I said, Kathy, if you were normal like other women, I'd come home, we could have a gracious drink together. But this was not true. That wasn't my idea of a gracious drink, to come to that bedlam in that house. But I said, I'll tell you what. If my drinking bothers you this much, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit, as the philosophers say. I was studying all that stuff at Catholic U. Semper pro semper, meaning always and forever, like into the ether. And as I would say this, my eyes would sort of mist up with the inner goodness I saw in myself. Not only was I going to quit drinking, the kids were bringing these little pictures home from school of the gray lung and saying, Daddy, why do you smoke? I was going to quit smoking. I had a lot of surprises in store for this family. I told you how much I weighed. I was going to go on a diet. We're Catholic. I hadn't been to confession in a long time. Saturday, this is all going through my mind. Saturday, I was going to go to confession, and Sunday, march up to the communion rail with the kids. I'll tell you what, it makes me almost misty-eyed now to think of this spontaneous, emotional, and spiritual, physical regeneration of a man. But when I said these things, I meant them. Didn't you? My promises. And I was pretty persuasive, so my wife would say, okay, Ernie, we're going to see if you keep your promise this time. Nowadays, you Al-Anons call that enabling. We have all those new terms now, like codependent. That's something we used to put on our tax return, Anyhow, so that first day, I'd be sweating profusely. Could be 0 weather outside. I'm dehydrated. You talk about being dehydrated here. I'm buying those big bottles of orange pop, hitting every fountain in the courthouse. And I'd be afraid even to light a cigarette up that first day. I just go downtown and come back, but I'm home at 6 o'clock as promised. Day number 2, I still have a hangover. By this time in my drinking, I'm having these ferocious 3 and 4 day hangovers. Day number 2, I go downtown. I'm still hungover. I feel well enough to open the mail up, see if any money came in. I'm home at 6, as promised. Day number 3, I get up. Things are getting back to normal. I get a little peck on the cheek as I leave. I go downtown, I get some work done. I come home, 6 o'clock as promised. Kathy has her wonderful meatloaf dinner there. I'm going to give you that recipe. It's 1 pound of the very basic ground meat and about 6 loaves of bread stuffed into it. Catholics could eat this meatloaf on Friday under the old rules. That's how thin it was. After dinner, we'd take the overdue books back to the library, maybe go to the 5 and 10 and shop a little bit. Day number 4, I get up in the morning, and it's football weather. Brisk, invigorating, a snap in the air. And I'm 33 years old, and I'm well. I feel like a young lion. The famous Father Martin has said there's 4 terrible enemies of sobriety. I'll give them to you. They're health, wealth, youth, and brains. Any one of the 4 can keep you out. And I'll tell you, in my experience, and here in AA, we try not to talk past our experience. That's another wonderful thing I like about AA. We don't theorize here. We don't philosophize. We don't speculate. We share. We share our experience, strength, and hope, and that consists of what we have lived, what we have seen, what we have observed, what we have experienced. That makes it very authentic for me, very authentic. So I've met people who were too smart to make this program. I never met anybody too dumb to make it. I'll tell you that. So I would charge out of the house with vigor, and I'd go downtown. When those good days come along, you have to grab them. I'd get 4 or 5 days' work done. Return all kinds of phone calls, take care of all kinds of dictation, do all sorts of things. And I'd be charged up with exhilaration and accomplishment so that by 5 o'clock I needed to stop just for a beer, to ease off a little bit. I didn't want to inflict myself in that agitated state on my family. And I'd be off to the races again. There came a day in February of 1961 when I was on the town. I tried to creep out in the morning, and my wife stopped me. She said, Ernie, I took you for better or for worse. But the children weren't a party to that agreement. And I'm going to take them back to western Pennsylvania. Your parents are my own, wherever they'll have us. any life is better than this. And I'll tell you, my friends, I didn't even argue with her that morning. I knew I had run out of promises. And it's terrifying to think the circumstances that bring us to AA. I went downtown that morning. I wasn't singing the show tunes. The remorse set in. The hangover set in. I got to my office. I got a little rest. And I had to be in federal court at 10 o'clock to argue a motion. And I was number one on the calendar. I don't know where I'd be tonight if I hadn't been number one on a calendar. But I argued my motion first. I was out of there at 11. And when I came out of the courthouse, it was a bleak, gray, funereal February day. I couldn't go back to my office just for me as company. I walked down the side street from the courthouse to the office of another lawyer. We were not drinking buddies. We'd crossed paths that way, I think maybe twice at the most. We had had one case together previously. Why I went to his office, I'll never know. And I'm standing there in the shadow of the Capitol building. And I walked down C Street to his office, and I said, Hugh, come on down the corner. Have some coffee with me. I need to talk to somebody. My wife's going to leave. And he said, sit down. I'll send out for coffee. Somehow the subject got around to the evils of booze. And Hugh told me he hadn't had a drink in 6 months. I said, Hugh, that's wonderful, because everyone around the courts knows what a drunk you are. He didn't like that too much. Then he dropped a bombshell on me. He says, I'm in AA. And I said, no. You, a former bomber pilot, you, an ex-assistant United States attorney, federal attorney, a rough and tumble criminal lawyer, you're with those people that rattle those tambourines, whatever they do. And just then the phone rang, and my sponsor-to-be was calling. And he was calling Hugh up, and he said, the great Buck Doyle. And Buck called Hugh up, and he said, Hugh, I'll come by and pick you up for the AA luncheon. There's a men's stag luncheon 3 times a week. We had it 40 years ago. We still have it today. And he said, you want to go? And Hugh said, yeah. He says, I want to go. And he says, by the way, there's a fat one here you might talk to. He says, I'm not doing too much with him. So Hugh hung up, and he said, Ernie, we have sponsors in AA. You got to meet my sponsor. He's a man's man. He flew with General Chennault in China in World War II. He's quite a guy. He says, well, that's nice, but I says, I'm hungover. I'm sick. My wife's leaving. I'm not in the mood to meet your sponsor right now. He says, why don't you come to this luncheon? I says, no thanks, Hugh. He says, I'll even buy your lunch. I says, no thanks. All of a sudden, a light bulb went on in my head. I says, wait a minute. If I go to this luncheon, will you call my wife up? Tell her I've filled the forms out, whatever you have, and I joined this AA thing. He says, we don't have any forms, we'll call her. Well, Buck came by and got us. We went, to give you an idea of time, this luncheon was at the Marriott Hotel at the other side of the 14th Street Bridge. At that time, it was the only Marriott hotel in the world. And I read the other day there are 2,000 of them now. So that's how long 40-some years ago is. And I go over to this lunch, and I was impressed with the guys I met. They were my kind of people. They were the drinking set, only they're all sitting there eating these big ice cream sundaes. And we came back to Hugh's office, and Buck got on the phone, called my wife up. He says, Kathy, this is Buck Doyle. We're lucky the phone was on. We used to have a lot of utility problems, you know. A lot of romantic candlelight dinners. You know what I'm talking about? And he says, I'm in AA. We're sitting here talking to your husband. Ernie thinks he might have a problem with alcohol. What do you think? What do you think she thought? He said, you might not have any faith in this big clown. Maybe you could have some faith in this AA program. It's worked for me. It's worked for the lawyer whose office we're in. It's worked for a couple 100,000 people. That's how many we had at the time. She says, why don't you stick around and see what happens? And she said, okay. Now, let me give you the context of my life in case somebody thinks that I was a high-bottom drunk. When Hugh told me that he was in AA, here's where I was coming from. I hadn't filed a federal tax return in 5 years. I had a car that had been repossessed 3 times. I had smooth tires. I remember Buck took me to, he didn't ask me to go, he took me to a meeting every night. After about 3 months, I said, Buck, let me drive tonight. I'm embarrassed you driving all the time. He says, Ernie, you haven't been in long enough to have good tires yet. Well, he saw that car. The women will understand this. My car looked like it had been washed and starched, but not pressed. It had all these waves on the side, no hubcaps. We were 5 months behind on the rent where we lived. Our furniture looked like something the Flintstones had given a Goodwill. You hear people in AA talking about bouncing checks. This is the gospel truth. My last deposit to the National Bank of Washington bounced. They sent my money back. They said, you're too much trouble. We're closing your account. You hear of people who owe their lawyers money on these DWI cases, drunk driving cases. I owed my clients money. I used to borrow money from my clients. No life insurance, no hospital insurance, no car insurance, no credit cards. Are you kidding? I had one suit of clothes. I had a little dry cleaner that was a client of mine. I thought this was perfectly normal. I'd come into his place in the morning and stand in the back in my underwear and hit steam and press my suit out. I'd go to court to look halfway decent. That was the context of my life at the moment, and when Hugh told me he was in AA, you know what emotion I felt? I felt sorry for him. Talk about the second step. Well, it's getting real late. Let me say this. I went that first night to the meeting. There was a young guy there, one of Buck's pigeons, as we used to call him, celebrating his first anniversary. It was inspirational. I thought to myself, this is a wonderful program for these people. But maybe the first time in my colossally arrogant life, I followed directions that night. Buck told me to buy the big book. I bought it. He told me to read it. I devoured it. I don't think you can digest it in a lifetime because I see new things in the big book when I read it now. I think our understanding deepens as we grow in this program. So I went to a meeting every night. I stuck out with the guys that were happy about their sobriety. I read the literature. I went to the luncheons. I got active in the group. I did everything. After about 3 months, I says, Buck, I'm doing everything you guys tell me to do. When are my creditors going to get off my back? He says, when you pay them. I thought there was going to be some kind of amnesty. You've been a good boy, Ernie.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
Anyhow, the Iron Curtain went up in my head, and I was able to see into my past how I had been kicked out of prep school, where my immigrant mother had saved nickel to nickel to send me when I was 16 years old, and all the wretched mediocrity there had been in my life, and I had to admit the fact of my alcoholism. I was so fortunate. The God of my understanding zapped me sober. The first step was very easy for me, and I never dreamed at the beginning that I would learn to want to not drink, just not want to drink. What I didn't know, the God of my understanding said, I'm going to make the first step for Ernie easy, but I'm going to make him grind the other 11 out the hard way, because this guy thinks he's so fast on the uptake. He's such a quick study. When I came to AA, I thought AA was about not drinking and getting stuff. We needed stuff. I mean, we needed basic stuff like mattresses. I needed another pair of pants. sheets, towels. But fortunately, there was a law firm that was overloaded with trials. They saw I was not drinking. They gave me these cases. I started to make some money. So many good things happened with such rushing speed that I ran right past the steps of AA. And I got the stuff. I got a lot of stuff, the big cars and the big houses and the kids in the best schools, all of that. I'm ashamed to tell you how long I was in AA in that state. And it's the grace of God that kept me sober. And then with all of this stuff, my life was so racked with pain and so many other good things that happened to me. I had so much pain that I had to come back. I was driven back to these steps. The third paragraph of our 12 and 12, third paragraph of the introduction says the 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in nature, which if practiced as a way of life, can relieve the sufferer of the obsession of drink and permit a life that is happily and usefully whole. My life is happily and usefully whole tonight. I've learned from you people that I can be sober, joyous, and free on last week's spirituality. It's a new ball game every day. Jim was talking today about that divine spark. That's in our 24-hour reading. You know, I do about 5 readings every morning, and if I don't do them, I feel like I haven't made my bed. You know what I mean? This is a Today program. I've learned all of that from you. I didn't learn that at Catholic University. When I came into AA, I was around all these theologians there. I didn't feel I needed to come to AA and have some plumber explain spirituality to me, But it turned out that's the way it worked. Tonight there's serenity in my heart as far as alcohol is concerned. If we were to pick a patron saint, I'd pick St. Augustine. He had a rough go of it, and, he liked women. And the 6th step was, in the way he did it, was tough. His prayer was, "Catch me, Lord, but not yet." And I learned that I wasn't ready on a lot of things, but he said something beautiful. He said, "Peace is that tranquility which comes from order." That's what I think we mean by serenity. Whenever I'm doing the next right thing and doing what I'm supposed to do, there's a beautiful stillness, an evenness in my life. AA has been very good to Kathy and me. We have 8 children. All 8 are university graduates. 4 of them have advanced degrees. One is an obstetrician. A couple are lawyers. One's an executive with a pharmaceutical company. A couple of teachers. We've been blessed. None of those 8 kids even smoke. We have 13 grandchildren. My affliction could skip a generation and fall on all of them like a plague. The paramount duty I think you and I have beyond our own sobriety, and we all know this, is to keep this message for generations yet unborn. The newest person in this conference tonight is going to be looked at in a historical perspective as among the founding generations of AA. We're a baby organization. We're 67 years old. We can't take this thing for granted. Is it going to be here 100 years from now, 500 years from now? Is it going to be here for any of these 13 grandchildren of mine, should they need it? I hope it is. And I hope they find it like I found it. The love of one drunk to another. Buck didn't preach to me. Most of us have been preached to by the experts, and always in a relationship from superior to us as inferior. Could be debtor to creditor, righteous spouse to wrongdoing spouse, landlord to tenant. And I thought Buck was going to lash into me. "Look at you, bum, your wife's pregnant." And he didn't. He told me his story. He told me what a drunk he had been. And when someone else makes themselves vulnerable, then we can take those earmuffs off that I wore, and I'm not afraid to listen. You know, you can have a 50,000-watt radio station. If you only have a $10 transistor, the music might not, the message might not come through too good. So when somebody's talking down to me, I block them out. I can't hear. But he shared here. We share here at AA. Well, I'm going to quit now with this thought. What Buck said to me that first day, he said, you know, you have an allergy, physiological, to the chemical allergy, alcohol. That's, you react differently than other people do, and it's coupled with an obsession of the mind. He said, you know, if you have hay fever and you're around ragweed, you're going to sneeze. Doesn't matter if you're hard-shell Baptist or an atheist, illiterate, or a university graduate. Well, that made sense to me. He gave me that middle ground that I could say I had an illness, that I wasn't necessarily depraved or crazy. But what is a mystery is, how is it that you and I are here tonight celebrating life? That's the mystery. You know, there's some lawyers I've seen whose drinking has caught up with them. There came a day that they were disbarred. Some lawyer someplace in this country is going to be disbarred this week. Somebody that's helped a lot of people because his drinking finally caught up with him. Some little guy is being waked someplace, probably in Flagstaff tonight, and his widow and kids are there, half grief, half relief, because he died a drunk. It's okay to die of cancer. It's still not okay to die a drunk. Some woman like one of you, tonight, someplace in this country of ours, is going to pulverize a kid with her car, wake up behind bars tomorrow morning and not even know what she did. Oh, what a nightmare. And you and I are here celebrating life. How is it that you and I are here? The only explanation is this was a gift given to you and me, maybe but this once. So we want to keep it and share it together as we trudge not to a weekend or a conference, but to a meeting that's never going to end. I think Bill's going to be there, and Dr. Bob's going to be there, and Sister Ignatia is going to be there, and my sponsor's going to be there. And it's at a place called Happy Destiny. And till we meet there, may God keep you and bless you. Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our Tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308, or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.